It's massive. It's massive. Snow. It's not snowing. Hey y'all, welcome back to Doug's Cars. I get to drive a brand new car today. Yes. It's a Lexus RC350 F Sport. Not F Troop, that was a sitcom, F Sport. Look at this, beautiful dark silver. It's got a red leather interior, we'll see more of that shortly. Just an excellent color combination you have here with this car. It's an RC350, which means, BMW take note, 350 means it's a 3.5 liter V6, not some weird 2 liter thing. It actually has the size engine that it says on the trunk. Imagine that. But it's got a massive spindle grille. And yes, the car is currently running because it's hot out. And I actually am test driving a car today that has functioning air conditioning because it's brand new. This car was loaned to me, thank you, Thomas, by a friend of mine who used to have a Honda S2000 in Suzuka Blue. And you can go back and see that video when he bought that car a couple years ago. But this is his new ride. And while it's not a convertible and it's not a stick shift, it is a very, very cool ride. And I told him I was going to make fun of the grille because I don't like it. It's big, but all these vents are functional. And it actually has a really cool metallic, I don't know if it's painted or if it's molded that way, but that's actually pretty nice. And I will say, I don't own a current generation M4 because I cannot stand the grille on it. I had the last generation M4, which is not quite a competitor to this. This is more the 440i coupe competitor. Because this is about 314 horsepower, and that's about what that has. The M4 would be the competitor to the F on this, not the F Sport, but just the F, which has a normally aspirated, non-turbocharged 5 liter V8. That's pretty cool. That has 475 or so horsepower. But this is an older design. This has been made since like 2014. This is a brand new car, though. It's a 2022. And I'm gonna hop inside real quick, pop this hood, and let's take a look under there. Actual struts, and they're not old. You don't have to watch JR go replace them. So you can see it's running, you know, the belts are moving around down there. It's got a very, I mean, a lot of people put fake V6 cylinder things on, pistons on these, and it doesn't have that. That's fine. I mean, it's, you know, it's just plastic cover. You can see the intake here. A very small battery from the looks of things, considering, oh, that's interesting, Panasonic. Didn't expect that. There's quite a bit of room in here, of course, because this was designed for that 5 liter V8, which this one doesn't have, but this still has 314 horsepower. It will move, even though it is a fairly heavy car. It weighs about 2 tons, a little under 4,000 pounds. All right, that was the engine. I'm going to shut this hood, and let's take a look at the interior, which, as I mentioned before, is resplendent in red leather everywhere. All right, I got the air on pretty high here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the fan speed down because I don't want it to blow all over the camera. But as we're, you know, in a hot day here, I also have the cooled seat on. Hey, I don't get to drive new cars that often anymore. I mean, most of my friends have old cars, and I have old cars at the moment. And having air-conditioned seats, I'm gonna go ahead and close the door and keep the air in Florida right now is really nice. It's a warm day. It's in the upper 80s here, which is fine. It's May. It's supposed to be, and I'm aware of that. But man, cooled seats on high right now are helping me a lot. Now let's look around the interior a bit. You've got, you know, soft touch materials, leather or vinyl in red. Obviously leather with the red stitching on the steering wheel, and you've got red leather here on the seats, which of course obviously are perforated to allow that beautiful cool air to come through. You've got floor mats that actually have the, not just Lexus, but say RC. And I do have to point out, this is only the second Lexus I've ever driven. I drove an original LS 400 back in the fall up in Virginia that Troy and Sports Car Workshops had taken in. And, you know, it was a neat car. It was a little ragged because it was 30-some years old. So it did what I expected it to be a 30-some-year-old Lexus. This was a brand new one. And so, you know, this is, you know, completely different. And this is what that car would have been like when it was new for its era. Analog clock, always nice to see. Mark Levinson Premium Stereo, which I'm not going to turn on because, of course, copyright. It does have the Lexus touchpad thing where where you move the controller around like this, and then when you press it, it does stuff, and it actually like it actually like bumps when and I didn't know this because I never used it until today. You actually push it all the way down like that. It doesn't. It's not just a touch thing. You actually have to physically push it into the car, which was news to me. Another interesting thing, other than the fact that it has a CD player, and those are getting hard to find nowadays. These sliders, which you can slide your finger up and down to change the temperature. Also, if you tap it, they beep. Now, I know in some older Japanese cars, especially from the 80s, every button on the air conditioning system beeps. This doesn't do that, just the sliders. But that was just interesting. I hadn't seen that in a really long time, and I don't know that I've ever driven a car that does that. So that was interesting. I will say, though, this car has a neat party trick, and I'm going to try to get it in here so there's a little less glare. Let's do that. Now, if I press this button here on the steering wheel, oh, it slides over and gives you other displays over here. So this is just like the fancy V10 sports car that they had for a few years that was very expensive and very cool. But see, I would just run out all the fuel sitting here, sliding this back and forth. So that's interesting. Yeah, so the gas gauge goes way down on the bottom there instead of over on the right. Very, very cool. Start stop button up here. A lot of the controls, of course, are similar to things you'd find nowadays. You know, you've got your radar cruise, you've got your flappy paddles, and then down here you have the very Japanese buttons that are just kind of stuck on down here. I've had so many German cars that just seems like it isn't a great design, because they're just kind of all like, we're just going to stick the buttons right here and they're all going to look the same, and there's blanks, even though this is a fully loaded car. I don't know why they don't integrate them better. That's just the way they do that. But oh, here, well, let me open the door back up again and see if we can hear some revs. That's only going to rev up to 3,000 anyway because it's in park. Most modern cars don't let you rev it all the way up, so you can't have fun. But it's got a pretty good exhaust. It's a V6. It's not over loud. This is a Grand Touring coupe, really, if you think about it. So since that's what it is, and since I've kind of shown you all the interior, it's a coupe. It's not that big in here. Let's get you all mounted up to the windscreen here and go for a drive. Don't forget your belt. This car has an interesting shifter. It kind of goes over a little bit. It's not just straight pull back like with most automatic transmissions. You have to kind of move it over like an old school Mercedes, where you had that pattern that kind of is not a Jag J pattern, not quite that intense, but it moves very nicely at hand, and it feels nice to move. This is not a manual, and that's fine. Nobody has them anymore. It's a dying breed, but I like a manual, and it just drives so smoothly. It is nice to be in a brand new car, I must say. If I haven't said that enough already, you can make it a drinking game. But I rarely get to drive new cars, and the other Doug does these kinds of cars, and he's the other Doug for a reason. He does new cars and gets people to buy them based on his recommendation or not. But this is really neat. It steers very quickly. You turn the wheel, you go. It definitely has a sporty steering feel to it. Like I said, it's a heavy coupe. It's a 4 Series competitor, which is also a heavy, fairly large coupe, even though they're medium size, really. And so it's not going to be tossable like a Miata. But wow, I must say, I am definitely enjoying how this steers. And I am just right here on a little city street. Now we're going to go out on a bigger road here in a minute, so I can actually try this out a little bit more. But this is nice. I'm liking the air conditioned seats, as I said before. That's always a nice thing to have. The turn signal stalk does the old BMW thing. I think they've gotten away from that. They had it for a while where you turn it and it goes to that, and then it goes back to the middle. And so, people always don't know what to do with that until they get used to it. And I had some BMWs with it, so I'm used to it. But I was surprised to see that. It's gotten old school in the fact that people went away from it because it just got annoying. Now, I don't know if they have any complaints about it at Lexus, at Toyota. I know there's been a lot of complaints about this iDrive type controller here with the touchpad. and I think they've been getting away from it. It is not a touch screen, by the way. You couldn't touch it anyway. I mean, I'm stretching my arm all the way out from where I'm seated, and I still have like 3 or 4 inches to the screen from my finger, so that wouldn't work. It is nice that the screen is kind of up there in your line of sight, though, and that's something the owner mentioned to me too when he was telling me a little about the car before I took it out on this drive, was that as you're just looking straight ahead, the screen's pretty much right there. It's almost like a heads-up display, which this car does not have, unfortunately. You know, a heads-up display is a very nice feature to have, but it's an expensive feature, and they chose to not put it in this car. Maybe because of the age of the platform. Like I said, these did come out in end of 2014 or so. It has had an engine upgrade since then, just slightly different, like a technical upgrade. Interesting note on this 3.5 liter V6, it is naturally aspirated, and in addition to that, it has 2 types of fuel injectors. The owner did not know that when I told him about that, but in my research before making this video, I found out that it is an Atkinson cycle engine as well. But the 2 different types of fuel injectors, from what I've read, I'm not a fuel injector expert, it's direct injected, as are pretty much any modern car, but it also has port fuel injection, and the reason being, the direct injection is apparently less efficient at higher RPMs, and this redline's at 6750 from just looking at it right now. So in order to get more fuel properly into the piston chamber itself, in the cylinder bores, it has a separate fuel injector for each cylinder. So there's 2 on each cylinder of a different style. That's just was interesting to me. I've never heard of that before. It doesn't mean other companies don't do that, but it was just something that I had never seen or heard from before. So cool to note, a little tidbit of information there that will push out something useful and fill your brain with things you don't need to know. Welcome to Doug's Cars. So finally getting up to speed now. I'm out of the historic district of downtown, and we can go a little bit faster here. What I normally do is drive across the bridge to the mainland, which allows me to get up to highway speed and come back. It's when you live on an island, there's not a whole lot of places you can take a vehicle that's local and actually test it out on the highway. But I have a feeling this is going to be extremely comfortable and smooth and just a delight at speed. Oh, that does sound good. Well, it's afternoon traffic, unfortunately, and there's a bunch of trucks leaving the island, but that 8-speed, it downshifts pretty quickly, and that exhaust note is pretty nice. It's not droney at speed. I'm going 47 right now. I'm going 45. I apologize. I'm going 45, which is the speed limit I'm supposed to. And I could see how this is a very capable long-distance cruiser, and you know, something you could just jump in, and it's showing 22.6 average miles per gallon, and this car was just taken down to South Florida and back, so that's all I-95. So, you know, fairly high speed. It's a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit down there and back, so the owner got to enjoy that, and I would have as well. This is just nice. You know, I haven't spent a lot of time in Lexus's Lexi. I drove that 1990, which is the one that I knew as a kid. My dad almost got one when they first came out. We went and looked at them, and he ended up getting a Mercedes 300e 124 instead, which was an excellent car. I mean, probably one of the best cars he ever owned. There we go. That sounds good. Got up to a little bit of speed there. I'm still following the vehicle in front of me, so, you know, but there, it just shifted into lower gear, and again. So at 60 miles an hour, it's going about 2,300 RPM, and I don't know what actual gear it's in. It is an 8-speed automatic, but it doesn't tell you when you're in drive what gear it's in. I know some cars do that. It doesn't matter, obviously, but just for purposes of this video, I wanted to say. But this is a comfortable place to be. Even going across the bridge, it's got the bumps at all the expansion joints, which in my Lincoln is very floaty. And in my Land Rover, with the air suspension, you feel it a bit more. This feels nice and controlled and firm, and dare I say it, Germanic. I said it. I did. But that's the competition. You know, BMW sells way more 4 Series than Lexus sells RCs. Of course, there's a new one out with the hideous front bucky teeth thing, beaver teeth in the front, which is, I just can't do that. But it looks like I'll be lucky here to make a U-turn, which is what I'm going to do anyway. And there's nobody coming, which means, there we go. gas. Okay, I'm not going to go any higher than that. It's a new car, but that was about 5,000 revs, and you know, we're up to cruising speed, you know, like that, effortless, other than push my foot down harder on that pedal. And you know, a good muted sound. I always enjoy a good exhaust note that's not overwhelming. My M4, when you put it in a sport package or in the sport settings with exhaust, was fantastic. It was a bit loud if you started it that way, which you could do. You just had to turn the car on without turning the engine on, and then press the button, and you could hear the flap open in the exhaust. Now, I don't believe the exhaust note changes on this if you're in sport mode, which I am right now. It doesn't sound like it is any louder than it was when we started the car earlier, and so I don't think it has that. But again, this is not that. The V8 model may do that. I don't have one. If someone has one and wants me to come drive it, I would love to. I'd love to drive a normally aspirated brand new V8. Those things don't exist outside of the truck world anymore, basically. I have two normally aspirated V8s at home, but they're a little more old-fashioned, as you might say. So, although, well, the Land Rover one is double overhead cam, so, you know, that's not bad. So overall, I enjoyed this more than I thought. I know I wasn't going to be disappointed. It's a brand new, modern, fairly high performance, well-engineered, handsome vehicle. It's the same as the M4. I like the new M4, but I just can't stand the front end. I think I prefer this front end to the new 4 Series / M4. And maybe it's because I had the previous Gen 1 and I just am so upset with BMW after having owned 15 of them in my life that they would do something that hideous. And yes, the Lexus grille has been out way longer, and I've always pointed out that my disdain for it. But after having seen it up close a bit more and seeing that the fact that it has that metallic sheen to it, which is kind of interesting and different and not just cheap plastic, you know, it's grown on me a bit. It's still not my favorite thing in the world. If this were my car, I would park it nose in so that when I walk away, I'd turn around and look at the back of the car, not the front. But it's not my car, and that's fine. What also is not my car is the new M4. That I just absolutely would not buy. I would not spend that kind of money on a car that I didn't want to look at when I'm driving, or when I park it and walk away, you know. And, you know, that's their loss. Instead, I'm driving a $1,000 Land Rover. Sorry, BMW. But I had more fun in that than I had in the M4. I will say, though, I want to thank Thomas for letting me borrow this. This was neat. I got to do a review of a brand new car, which I haven't been able to do in a while. And I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this little review and walk around of this 2022 RC350 by Lexus. It is a very spicy Toyota, and I just, you know, want to thank you all so much for joining in. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you all again on Doug's Cars. Thanks for watching.